Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Friendly Ex-Muslim podcast. I'm your host, Abdullah Samir. And today we are now on episode 103. Do check us out on your favorite Stitcher, iTunes, your favorite podcast, Google Podcast, whatever it is, or of course on YouTube, where all the action happens. So today we are joined by special guest Khadija Khan. Khadija is a journalist and a commentator based in the UK. She writes for different publications focusing on human rights, mainly women's rights, as well as minorities and extremism. How's it going, Khadija?
Fine, thank you so much. How are you, Abdullah?
I'm good, wonderful. So you come from a Pakistani background, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about how, going back to your journalism in Pakistan, how that was compared to how it is now? Tell us about that and, give us some history of some of the stuff that you've done.
Yeah, I started my career as a journalist in Pakistan, but journalism is altogether a different story in Pakistan. You have to be very careful when you're talking about certain things, especially when it is related to religious dogmas and traditions and rituals sanctioned by the religious, uh, sources, scripture. So you have to be very careful. I've been very passionate about women's rights and minority rights because the minority situation in Pakistan. They always live in the shadow of fear, and the persecution of a minority is quite has been normalized, I would say, in Pakistani society in the name of protecting religious belief or religious sensibilities, that people don't feel hesitant when they are discriminating against minority people there. So I've been really passionate about it, but obviously it was very hard for me to write on these issues and criticize the state and the religious authorities in Pakistan. So the writings were in the favor of the vulnerable, the people, oppressed people, about women, Pakistani women, and the problems they are facing. But somehow it was always, I felt always reluctant when I would, discuss about the misogyny, prejudice towards women sanctioned by the religious scripture in Pakistan. But when I came here in the West, and obviously here we have freedom of speech, we have the right to mock religion, to criticize religion, because religion is a set of ideas, and it is all fair to criticize a set of ideas that impact our lives on daily basis, and
Mhm.
they design social structure where we live and where we interact with each other. So it's very important to scrutinize such ideas, and here I found this stability and freedom to talk about the issues I've been passionate about: women's rights, minority rights, and extremism, radicalization within Muslim communities, within Muslim societies, in the name of respecting religious belief. So yeah, that's how my journey has been,
Mm.
up to
So
now.
you went through a lot of stuff very quickly. So I'm going to ask you to kind of we're going to stop and talk about a couple of those things.
Mhm.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about was when you say minorities in Pakistan, who are you referring to?
Obviously, Christian, Hindu, Ahmadi, these are the minority religious group there. And apart from that, you can talk about Shia minorities, because, in Muslim majority countries, when Muslims are divided into sects, in different sects, and every sect thinks that they have the monopoly over the right and proper interpretation of religion. So they discriminate against each other on this basis. And Pakistan is a Sunni majority state, so obviously Shia people from Shia community, they are also discriminated against and marginalized. So this
Mm.
is what I meant when I say minority group in Pakistan.
So this just goes to show us why it's so important to have secularism, because
Yes.
when you have a majority that is in power, and the religiously enabled, that can sometimes lead to oppression of minority religious groups, right? Or minority women, like women can be a minority too in terms of the rights.
Yes.
And Ahmadis are Muslims, but Sunnis say you guys are not Muslim. Now, to me, that's less of an issue. I know some Ahmadis, there's some prominent Ahmadis have a big problem with Sunnis saying that we're not Muslim. But to me, the bigger issue is not that. The bigger issue is, sorry, I'm just gonna put my headphones on. The bigger issue is whether or not, not whether you're Muslim or not Muslim, but whether you are actually, giving people the rights, right? It's not about, I don't care if you think I'm Muslim or not Muslim or whatever. That doesn't even matter. What matters is that you treat me fairly, that you give me my rights, that if I want to call myself Muslim, that shouldn't be any of your business what I call myself. But in Pakistan, they go out of the way to like, if you have a mosque and it says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, like there's some they will come after you if it looks like a mosque. I mean, I've seen some documentaries where people have been charged for blasphemy because the stupidest thing, like they said the mosque looks like a Sunni mosque or something, so they like, they charge him for blasphemy. And it's just wild, right? It's wild that this sort of religious persecution can happen in the world today. It's just bizarre that we've moved past, like, here we in and I don't want to make it into West versus East sort of issue, but like if you look at how society is progressing, you have people get so angry, rightly so, when that and Black Lives Matter is such an issue now because of what happened, the police brutality issue. And even though police brutality in the US is so less bad than what's happening in these Muslim countries, like it's order of magnitude difference. Like these things that happen to George Floyd happens every single day probably in Pakistan, right? It's just like, it's wild, right? And so what's happening in America, or my side of the world, you have now, we've got to the point where we've become woke, and now even people get upset over things that like really are not even really big issues, but they're becoming into issues. Whereas like the real issues, like where you really need feminism and you really need women's rights and you really need rights of minorities and you really need the real battle should be happening in places like Pakistan, right?
Yes, exactly. I am an ardent advocate for secular values, and I didn't learn it from the Western society, where I learned all about these things when I was in Pakistan. And that was, I don't know, it was an instinct, I would say, that was a passion to see a separation from, between religion and state, because I could see clearly that religion is inherently discriminatory towards minority groups, towards women, and I wanted to see this separation in Pakistani society. But you know that it's not possible. The society is so radicalized into believing that religion is the only way forward, and it's not taking them forward, it is dragging them back to the Stone Age. That is the thing that we need to talk about in these societies. And there are many courageous, brave, activist people who are trying to talk about these things. But again, as you said, a little talk about religion, any criticism on a religious belief can get you in trouble, and you can be labeled as blasphemer, apostate, and you can be lynched, killed. You can obviously, the state in Pakistan, there is a law that you can it's a crime punishable by death. So it's really terrible and devastating situation in terms of human rights in Muslim societies, and it's very important to draw this distinction between secular values and the religion and religious values, because whenever we talk about in Muslim societies about secular values, they always come up, the radicals and extremists. They would always come up with this argument that, oh, you are trying to westernize our society. Western peoples, they are some kind of evil, and you are trying to bring that evil into our society and trying to, destroy the values and tradition of our society. It's nothing like that. The West is no way perfect, but they have embraced and adopted secular values, and still there is a struggle going on. There is always room for improvement, and they are always making efforts to make their system, their social system, the human rights condition, to make them better. And these values, secular values, they have learned after centuries of persecution, religious persecution. It didn't happen overnight. So saying that this is something that was invented by West and therefore we should never ever embrace it, it's ridiculous. I would say these are humane values. It's as I said, uh, in Pakistan, the common people, they are very much isolated from the outside world, even in the age of internet, when the world has become a global village. The people, common people, they have been fed, a certain narrative paddled by the religious authorities, paddled by the state, and they think the way they are told to think. And I was also one of them, but still there was something that I thought is not appropriate when we are trying to dictate each and every moment of our life, with religious sermons or religious belief. We need to separate these two things because they are uh, human society cannot be a homogeneous group of people. It's always diverse. There are minority groups, there are people who have opposing views. So you cannot impose one religion as a state religion in the society and try to, dictate the whole population with the same, stake, and try to teach them the same lesson every day, as it happens in Pakistan. That kids from minority groups, they have to worship, they have to say verses, they have to say prayers in schools, because this is the majority that want to do it. And if you don't do it, then obviously you are in trouble. You are disrespecting majority's religious beliefs. So that is the problem when we try to dictate everyday life with religious belief, or base our morality on religious values.
Hmm. Yeah, and to look at it also a different way. What when we look at the religious values, when everything is dictated by religion, isn't it also possible that we could say that even within the religion there is room for dialogue, there is like some range of different opinions that are allowed, whereas when this is like an issue of one particular religious belief, it's like they've taken one set of Islamic values and they've made it this is the only set of values. And that becomes almost like the culture now. The culture is you cannot question this, you cannot debate this, you cannot challenge it, even if you're Muslim, because there's Muslims as well that don't agree with everything in Islam. But sometimes this becomes a problem because you can't speak and you can't question because you might be considered a blasphemer, right?
Yeah, exactly. This freedom of speech has never been a religious value. That is one sure thing. It's always, I would say, religion is always an absolute entity in itself. You cannot question the validity of religious belief, otherwise you cannot follow it. I mean, to be a follower, you have to do it blindly, and this is what happens in conservative religious societies, that you cannot question. I have heard many Muslims in the West saying that, oh, our religion teaches us to question everything and then learn. And many other people from other religious groups, they also argue this. But this is not true. The truth is that they cannot question the validity of their religion. And if they do so, they are not follower anymore. And when there is a lack of tolerance, there is a lack of, diversity in opinions, and people are not willing to listen any criticism on their religious beliefs or traditions or rituals, then obviously we have a situation when there is no possibility to have a cohesive society where people from different backgrounds, from different, ethnicity, nationality, or many other backgrounds, they can come together and form an inclusive society. So that is the problem with this literal, absolutism, I would say, in religious societies.
Yeah, and I was going to say the other thing, other than the secularism, is also the enlightenment values. Things
Yes.
that, I believe these enlightenment values, they're for everybody. They're not owned by the West. The West has no absolute claim on humanism. Humanism and, the enlightenment values, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, all of that came after World Wars. I think after World War II, because
Yes.
we realized
Truly.
that we never want this thing to happen again, where the Jews were targeted by Hitler for what because of the ethnicity. So we came up with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which protects everyone's freedom of religion. I mean, free, based on your race, religion, sexuality, gender, all of that. You should not be discriminated for any of that stuff. You should just have the same rights no matter who you are, which is so beautiful, and it's something that I really strongly believe in. And definitely this is not owned by the West. Definitely enlightenment happened many in Western countries, but it needs to be owned by everybody, right? Pakistan needs it, India needs it, China needs it. Everybody has a right to be a part of this humanism. And the interesting thing is that secularism actually protects religion. So
Exactly.
yeah, like when I was a religious Muslim in Canada, like, and many of my friends, Muslim friends, agreed that, and even some of these like Islamic debaters are saying this. I think Daniel Hakikaju actually said this yesterday in the debate when Harith
Yeah.
Sultan said, "Why don't you go live in Syria?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, he said a little bit differently, but basically, I can practice my religion better over here than over there,
Yes.
right?"
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. That is the thing that when you go to these Muslim society that claim to hold, high moral ground, they cannot even allow people to practice their religious belief freely. And it's not about non-Muslims only. It's also about Muslims who have, a little difference of opinion on certain religious beliefs, and they read the reading of scripture is a bit different from the majority, people. They cannot do it in the Muslim majority countries. Here in the West, it doesn't matter you are Shia or Ahmadi or Sunni, whatever, Brahlevi, whatever you are, you can practice your religion here, and that exposes the hypocrisy and the recklessness of these, I would say, radicals and extremists and apologists for really discrimination based on religious belief.
yeah, absolutely. By the way, do you have headphones by any chance? I'm hearing a little bit of echo still when I'm talking. Do you by any chance have headphones? If not, that's fine. We'll just continue.
I have to go and get it.
No, no, okay, that's fine. We'll continue then. That's okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to ask you, the next question I have is,
Mm.
can you tell us about some of the articles you've written? Like maybe either one of the recent articles you've written, or maybe while you were in Pakistan. It'd be more interesting if you have one example from Pakistan and how you oh yeah, and some of the reaction you got from Pakistanis, or people emailing you, like, was it good, was it bad, how did they react to you writing about these things?
I wrote about minorities, and I talked about Ahmadis, that they are Pakistanis as everyone else, and what their beliefs are, it's entirely different matter, and state should not take part in the persecution of the religious minorities. And this is what is happening in Pakistan. So I was labeled as apostate or blasphemer, and good, that is too good for you. And these kind of messages I received from after writing those articles. I talked about women when I say that women who are taking to the street protesting for their basic human rights. I say that stop defining women's rights in terms of religious rights. Religious rights are not, fair. They are not equal. They don't provide equality and justice to women. So it's not fair to define women's right in terms of religious rights. We need to move on from defining women's right strictly within the framework of religion. And then I was labeled as vulgar or westernized, or a person who is promoting Western values in Pakistan, and then all sorts of threats and abusive messages that they send, and they feel like they are entitled to do so because somehow they feel hurt by my words. So yes, so that's the thing, that they feel so, actually they feel threatened. I always say that these losers who just choose to threat people only because they have opposing opinion, they feel threatened. They don't feel hurt. They feel threatened because somehow you are questioning the validity of their beliefs, and this is what threatens them the most, because they know that there are fallacies, there are problems in their beliefs, but they don't want to accept it. And then it was a fortunate moment for me to move from Pakistan to the Western country, because here I could see that how women's rights are protected. And I'm not saying anyway that West is the perfect place, but there are problems. But still, I see that there people are very much conscious, and they strive for freedoms and liberties and try to preserve human rights in every possible way. So I continued writing about these issues, and my focus has been on women's rights, on extremism, on radicalization within Muslim community, within certain section of Muslim communities, and then minorities as well. And then there is a problem that we're having, with this terminology of Islamophobia. Then I have also written about this. But my most recent articles were about the situation, the devastating situation in Afghanistan, especially in terms of the violation of women's rights. I have written a couple of articles on this, and I will continue writing on these issues, because I don't want the world to forget about these courageous, brave women who are staring in the face of fear and without having any support from the international community so far. So it's really brave of them, and this is what I intend to do.
So you make a lot of very interesting points, and I wanted to say that it's sad that you used to get that sort of abuse, speaking about things that are important to Muslims, like Muslim women and other minorities. And of course the state is the one that's enabling these people to behave this way. It's enabling them to put all this hate against you, and they get away with it. Of course, the internet is one of those things that everyone can abuse anyone. That's kind of the downside of it. Excuse me, but this was your own people that were messaging you and attacking you simply for saying, let's treat people fairly. And it gets worse than that. It gets, the minister that actually stood up for against blasphemy laws, Shan Taseer, was assassinated, right, by his own bodyguard.
Yes, Salman
So
Taseer, yes.
it's like Salman Taseer, not Shan Taseer. So yeah, it can get even worse than, and it's the system that protects these people. And what I was gonna say was, you're right. These people are so threatened by a lady writing articles that they wanna attack you and hurt you just because you're writing something. It's so pathetic,
Yes.
and it's funny. If Islam is so good, then why are you saying that living in London is better for you as a woman than living in Pakistan? If Islam is such a beautiful religion, we should see that people want to migrate to Muslim countries. And let's put aside the financial part of it. So for example, Pakistan is obviously a poorer country compared to London, but let's say like a rich country like United Arab Emirates or Saudi, or one of the countries that has like a good GDP. Even those countries, people from there, they want to come over here. So
Yes.
there must be a reason. Like
Yeah.
people are obviously wanting to move for their own best interest, and there must be a good reason why and you actually said it. It's because life is better. Can you give examples of how life is better for you as a woman in London versus Pakistan? Like what's so bad about being a woman in Pakistan, other than the fact that you're not allowed to write articles? So put the journalism aside, like just as a woman, what's the issue living in Pakistan, or
In,
potential issues?
in conservative religious society, it's offensive for you, um, even if you are if you are just a woman. It's offensive for them. Your being is offensive for them. Your existence is offensive for everyone. There are laws, there are traditions, there are rituals. They try to control each and every single moment of your life. That is the problematic area that we seldom talk about, because when you are born and raised in a conservative religious household, in a highly conservative society, that you don't get to see, or you don't get to enjoy what is normal life for a woman. For a woman, there are obligations, there are religious obligations, restrictions, and you are obliged to comply. You have no choice. If you refuse to comply, then there are repercussions and consequences that you have to face. You can be subjected to torture, you can be subjected to harassment, intimidation, and you can be, sexually harassed, assaulted, raped. Anything is justified if you refuse to comply with these archaic, I would say, good for nothing rules and regulations. But when you come to a Western country, you see the difference. The gap between the lifestyle of modern women here in the Western societies, in the free democratic societies, and their counterparts living in the Muslim majority countries. I have experienced this difference, so I know what it is like living in a conservative society, and how you feel yourself liberated and empowered when you are part of a free society. We have freedom of speech, and I am free to disagree. I am free to say that no, I don't want to wear a certain um, uh, attire. I don't want to follow a certain code of life. I am a very peaceful, peace loving person. I want to live uh, the way I want to live, and there is no restriction placed like imposed on me here. But it's only because I am an opinionated or independent woman. That's why I can live like this. Here in the West, the women who are, part of the closed Muslim societies, who live in those societies, their life is again entirely different from the lifestyle of a modern woman. And when we say modern women, I don't know what is the definition of modern woman for them. It's like the women should be vulgar, she should be disobedient, she should be, breaking the families, and leaving her kids. I mean, this is extraordinary. This is the definition of modern women. For me, what is modern woman? A well-educated, opinionated woman, very much aware of her responsibilities, and she is very much aware of her rights, of her basic human rights, and she knows how to protect them. She knows how to protest against injustice. This is how I see a modern woman. So I think the difference is very stark between the life of a woman living in a Muslim majority or in religiously conservative societies, I would say, in general, and women living here in the free democratic society.
Hmm. So there's a lot of things I want to I kind of talk about with this topic, but I want to start with the dress code. Um, how is it? So obviously Pakistan is not like Saudi. What is the dress like? what are the limitations for women in Pakistan? Like, again, it must depend on where you live too, right?
Yes,
So, like,
yes,
what is considered acceptable dress in Pakistan, and if you don't wear it, what are the consequences?
you know, there is a traditional dress for women, and majority of women they wear it with the traditional dupatta. This
Which is
is
hijab,
traditional
right?
clothing. Yes, no,
Dupattas is
it's not
hijab.
hijab actually. It's dupatta, and this dupatta was never a hijab. Like my mother, my grandmother, I've never seen anybody in my family,
How do you describe
using
dupatta?
dupatta hijab as hijab.
How
Yes,
do
my
you,
father's family. Yeah,
because
sorry.
I'm not familiar with Pakistan. I grew up, in Canada, and I was born in Kenya. So I don't dupatta means like it's just like a how do you describe it?
Dupatta is like a piece of cloth that you put on your shoulders.
Okay.
You design it as you want to, and some women they put it on head, but it's not a it wasn't a compulsory thing before, in the past, but now it has become. Now this is compulsory for women to cover themselves. The focus is on covering women from head to toe. Dupatta is not good enough. Now you have to take chadar, you have to wear burqa, you have to wear hijab, because hijab has been glamorized, here in the West a lot. So it's been presented, to Pakistani women, young girls, as something which has been, glorified or glamorized in the Western world. So if you do it, then obviously you are a part of that so-called enlightened culture.
Yeah.
Yes, and I also experienced this, in my lifetime. My father's family was very conservative, but my mother's side wasn't, and I never. My mother was very protective of her, daughters, and she stood for us, and she said that my girls will not wear hijab. She confronted my father, and she paid a price, for doing that. But she did it, so I was very fortunate enough to not experience, this oppression all my life, and I have this conscious awareness that it is not what our tradition is, but is our local culture. And Pakistan is a very diverse country. We have so many cultures. Every province has its own cultural dress, language. So it's this burqa black, burqa clad women is not the representation of Pakistani women, but it's been imposed in the name of religious modest wear. So many women they feel themselves coerced. They don't want to wear, but they have to wear because this is something that religion is dictating, or religious authorities are dictating. So you have to comply. If you don't do it, then obviously you are uh, exceeding the divine limits, and that is not acceptable in a conservative society like Pakistan. So the dress code that we now see in Pakistan, increasingly, it's becoming, this um, burqa, hijab, and niqab, and it's becoming a standard dress for women, and people they try to measure the character or the modesty, through the with the length of the dress. The more you are covered, the more you are pious, the more you are modest. So it's becoming really worrying, I would say, and concerning. But yes, as we see what's happening in Afghanistan, we see that Afghanistan has a beautiful culture when it comes to women's dressing, beautiful, bright dresses. And what we see now, that what they have covered them in rags, I would say. They are burqa clad women everywhere in Afghanistan. They cannot leave the house without a male guardian. Girls are banned from going to schools. So this is one visible. This dress code is a visible symbol of that women's oppression, and it's been imposed on women. It follows the many other odds, the many other abusive treatment follows behind, and what we see right now in Afghanistan, this is the ultimate, situation where women uh, find themselves being trapped.
Yeah, I want to share a tweet that you made. I do want to ask more about Pakistan. It's so interesting, but we were supposed to talk about Taliban. Let me share your tweet on the screen. A dear friend from Afghanistan sent me this beautiful Afghan cultural dress on Eid. I proudly stand with Afghan women. Do not. Can you tell me about this? Do not touch my clothes hashtag.
Yes, this is a beautiful dress that I received on Eid. My friend, a very dear friend, she sent me from Afghanistan a couple of years ago, and I kept it. I love this dress, and I still have it, and I wanted to wear it to show solidarity with Afghan women who are running an online campaign, "Do not touch my clothes." Because the dress code has been imposed on Afghan women. It's not their traditional clothes. It has nothing to do with their tradition. So they want to, run this campaign, and they are successfully running this campaign in defiance of Taliban's this black and this oppressive dress code. And I wanted to show solidarity, and I am very proud of my this passion that I need to share with these women, and I want to stand in solidarity unconditionally with these women because they are fighting against the oppression. They are fighting against an ideology that sees women as a sexual object and wants to cover her from head to toe. And that ideology does not see women as a human being. It sees women a lifeless object that's been created to fulfill the desire of men to serve men. So I stand by these courageous, brave women, and I'm so proud of this campaign that they are running.
Afro Humanist says it's a beautiful dress, and it would be a shame to get rid of it. Yeah. So, okay, so I want to just pause for 1 second and remind everyone, please thumbs up the stream. If you're enjoying it, please like the stream so that YouTube will share it with more people. Now, Khadija, back to the topic. I think there's a lot of overlap between Pakistan and Afghanistan, anyways. Although, like you said, Taliban and Afghanistan is the end game of what a lot of these religious people want to happen all over the world, not just in
Yes,
Pakistan. They want this to
yes.
happen everywhere. So a lot of the stuff we're going to cover is going to apply to both anyway. So what I want to talk about is I'm just going to mute you so I don't hear myself. The divorce laws for women and rape slash sexual harassment in we can talk about Pakistan, we can talk about Afghanistan, but basically what I wanted to ask you is what happens if you are a victim of sexual harassment in one of these countries? What would happen if you went to the police? Would they believe you? Would they not believe you? Would you get in trouble for this under because under Islamic law, which I don't know how if they still implement it this way, if you accuse someone else, potentially you could be considered as making false witness if you don't have enough witnesses and evidence or whatever. And again, Islamic law has never been about evidence, it's always been about witnesses. It's not very, it's whoever made it we know who made it. Whoever made it didn't think about evidence, they thought about witnesses, which is stupid, right? Four witnesses is not, it's just, it's so ridiculous. But anyways, that's what the rule is. And because of the Aisha, the wife of Muhammad, being accused of adultery, all of these like ridiculous rules came about, which have more to do with Muhammad and defending Aisha, his wife, and his reputation, rather than actually protecting women. Because now you have a situation that even a woman that makes like an accusation can be charged with sexual impurity or whatever they call it. What do you think about that?
Apart from the laws of the land, which are very much Sharia compliant in Muslim majority countries, we see the social, what is the attitude in social discourse towards women who are victims. There is, you must know about this, that there was no law, that could deal with the cases of rape in Islam. So the religious scholars, what they did was they applied the punishment for adultery into the cases of rape. And if we see that is so horrific even to begin with. In adultery, you need 4 male witnesses. They say that this is in the favor of women, because if somebody has accused a woman of being an adulteress and could not, provide 4 male witnesses against her, then she is free of all charges. But if you apply the same thing in rape cases, this is devastating. This is humiliating for women. That the burden of proof is on women to provide 4 male witnesses who witnessed her being raped. And that is not possible. So the attitudes of people in these societies have been shaped by these laws, these traditional, manifestation of religion sprouting from theological discourse. So people generally think that when you say that I've been raped, I was raped, so ultimately the victim blaming, kicks in. People start talking about what you were wearing, why were you there, why did you go out? It was dark outside, and were you alone? Why were you not with any male member of your family? I mean, the victim blaming, precisely. And after that, the treatment women gets, generally, it's horrible. It's humiliating. Everybody looks at them like as if they have done something wrong. It was their fault. Sometimes people don't shy away from saying that. You must have provoked that man. You must have done something. Like Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. First, he said that it's because of women's clothing, that people, men, they don't control themselves and they start, assaulting women. And then when there was an outrage, there was an uproar on international level, and he was, I am not sure, but maybe he was a bit, uncertain about what he earlier said. So he wanted to correct himself by saying that, oh, no matter how provocative a woman is or how provocative her dress is, it's always the rapist who is responsible for the crime. But again, provocative, who decides what is provocative? In Pakistan, majority of women, they wear traditional clothes. Not all girls are wearing, the short skirts. Or what is provocative? In Pakistan, kids are raped, boys are raped, and even the religious clerics, they are involved in mosques, in madrasas. I mean, how can you just talk about a woman being provocative or a woman wearing some provocative clothes and inciting, such kind of assaults or forcing or provoking people to rape her? It doesn't make sense, but this is the mindset that prevails. That is a harsh reality for us women to, understand, but that is what it is. This mindset prevails across the Muslim world. These women who are outside walking down the streets, they are considered not worthy enough to be respected. They are all fair game. You can do whatever you want. What happened in Pakistan a few weeks ago? A girl, she was wearing traditional Pakistani clothes. She went to Minar Pakistan, for making a TikTok video, and more than 400 men, they assaulted her for hours. Her team, they called the police. They did not arrive. Nobody came forward to help her, to protect her. They torn her clothes. I mean, it's horrible for a prime minister to make such statements when he cannot control this crime in his own country, and he blames women one way or another for the crimes committed against them. I mean, can you imagine a girl was sexually assaulted for hours by more than 400 men, and still she is the one who bears the blame? You know, for a few days, everybody was saying, oh, it was very bad. These men should be ashamed of themselves and all that. And you know what is the ultimate conclusion in the end? I'm telling you about the social attitude that why did she go there? And she has made some provocative videos in the past for TikTok. So maybe that was the reason that people attacked her. Again, victim blaming. So whether there are laws in place, the society is not a safe place. These societies are not a safe place for women. When they step out of their house, they don't know what's going to happen to them. And afterwards, how police or how the society going to treat them. They have no idea. And they are in a very, very vulnerable position. And those who try to criticize government, like Aurat March in Pakistan, and you can see the Women's March across the Muslim world, how they are treated, how these women are treated by the police, by the society, by men, what they say about them. They call them vulgar, they call them whores, they call them like women who have no, dignity. They're worth nothing. That's how they treat them. Talking about your human rights, and you are labeled as as I think it's not less than what is the punishment for apostasy, or they lynch you with words, if
Mm-hmm.
not with hands.
Yeah.
And that is an awful state for women to live in, in such countries where a woman is all about respect, honor, and that has been lynched, you stripped away, and now you have nothing. Can you imagine the situation, like when women are treated like this? It's horrible. So when they talk about Islam protects women, or any dress code that is prescribed by the religious, authorities, mainly men, only men, I would say, because women have never been consulted when it comes to the matters of women, in Islam or in Muslim majority countries. So it is dictated by men on the pretext that it will protect women, but it does not protect women. It does not protect women. In Muslim, if it protects women, the majority of women in Muslim majority countries, they wear traditional clothing. Many of them cover themselves from head to toe. They wear burqa, whether it is imposed or not, but they do wear these kind of dresses. And if it is all about dress, they should never be in this position, in this state, in the first place. But it happens, and people get away with it conveniently. It is condoned by by the society. It's horrible in every manner.
I was gonna say, thank you for sharing that. This is what I want. This is what I wanted to hear from you, because as a Muslim woman who lived in these countries and who experienced this, and you have a lot of insight and a lot of access to the cultural understanding, and the what people are saying and how you felt when you lived there, that I don't have access to. Like, I grew up in Canada. I even though I'm brown, like I don't know anything about Pakistan, and people assume I'm Pakistani when they say me, but I have no clue. And I think most people don't know how bad it is. So I'm glad. I appreciate you sharing all of these details with us. I wanted to ask you about something else, which is when a woman is assaulted in one of these countries, how does the family of the victim treat the woman that was abused or assaulted? Do they blame, other than the victim blaming, does she get support from her family, or is she like damaged goods? Is there this honor killing thing that can happen, that she can actually be killed by her own family members She could be like, what happens when she's, let's say it wasn't her choice. We can also talk about when it is her choice. So let's say, for example, she has a boyfriend and they find out that she had premarital sex. Maybe she got pregnant, maybe she didn't. But like, how does her family, like, that's supposed to support her, how do they deal with this situation?
The families of such victims are part of this society. Obviously, if we say that somehow they feel better for their, for their child, for being in such a terrible situation, or their women for being in such a bad situation. But still, there is stigma attached to these, these kind of situations where women are raped. So now they are damaged good. Nobody will marry them. There would be no respect for the family and the people, especially the male member of the family. They would be hiding their faces. They would not face the relatives. They would not face the neighbors. And in extreme cases, we see that they would torture their own women and subject them to inhuman treatment for the crime she never committed. So it's a terrible situation. In any way, whether she is in a relationship with a person and have sex with that person, or she is raped, uh, she is bringing on dishonor, bad name to the family, and that is the main thing. So that's why they believe that oppress women as much as it is possible until the time you marry her off to a man, then it's the responsibility of that man. And many times we hear this, many people saying that you are going as a bride and you should come when you are dead. You should never leave your husband's house. In any situation, you have to live there, you have to compromise uh, in every situation.
Sorry,
So I
I
don't
didn't
think
catch
so
that.
there is any ideal situation for women, even if the parents are understanding and they understand whatever is happening, it's not the fault of our girl. Still, there is a stigma attached to this kind of situation where people would never see you as a victim. They would always blame you one way or another. They would try to find excuses to mistreat you and to tell you bad things, that, oh, if you have done this, it would have never happened to you. So that kind of attitude is very much prevalent in these conservative societies, where every time whatever happens, women bears the blame.
Hmm. And I wanted to ask you about one more thing which comes to mind. What, in societies like this, where premarital sex is frowned upon and marriage is so difficult, do you find this leads to a lot more perverted behavior from men? Meaning that they become obsessed and they act, like become rapists and stuff like that over the smallest thing, or they'll consider like even a woman showing her ankle as, this is like triggering them or something. Whereas in a society where, it's easier to date and, you can have relationships without this big commitment, you don't have those same issues. What do you think about that?
The thing is that rape is not about what is provoking, these sexual predators. It's about force, it's about power. When you see that you can rape a woman, doesn't matter what is she wearing, doesn't matter where is she is in a situation where you have, power to do whatever you want to do. So you do it. So this is about power. This is not about what is provoking them. Showing ankles, showing arms, bare legs, bare face, bare hair. I don't think so. It has anything to do with these crimes. These are lame excuses, and society very conveniently buy into this, narrative. They try to protect men when they say, "Oh, what could I do? She was wearing, provocative clothes." Now,
So,
for me, it's what is strange is, what is the definition of being provoked? If a woman can provoke you while she's in a traditional shalwar kameez or in a burqa, so what is the provocative for you when a woman is? For being a woman is provocative for these kind of men. It's a woman. Then
Yeah.
all they know is it's a woman, and I have the power to do whatever I want to do, to impose myself on her. This is what they know, and this is how they commit these crimes and get away with it, because societies just conveniently consider their lame excuses and use them as a tool to then strike or lash out at women who try to explain that it wasn't her fault.
So basically, wearing hijab doesn't protect women from assault,
No way.
despite what Muslims claim. There's even a video, a viral video, that someone recorded, like two women walking down New York. One of them wearing hijab and one of them not wearing hijab and dressed up and showing off the body. And the one that was dressed down, not dressed up, dressed down, she got a lot more people like catcalling her. Guys were flirting with her, whistling at her, following her. So they were trying to prove that, oh, look, when you wear hijab, nobody bothers you. But the thing is that I think that social experiment is not fair, because what it does is it's taking a Muslim woman in like that's out of, let's say in New York, where that's less common in that part of town, and she's walking, and maybe those men felt like uncomfortable to approach her because they didn't know, like, maybe she's a foreigner, maybe she's not even from here. Whereas obviously when they see a local woman, and they felt comfortable, and this wasn't even assault. I mean, they were just like, maybe she might have felt uncomfortable, for sure. She might have felt, I'm not saying she felt she liked it, but what I'm saying is, they it's not like she got abused. Some of them were approaching her, or they wanted to talk to her, or whistling or whatever. Some of those, there's a range of reactions, but that doesn't prove to me that the hijab protects her, because as what you've shown us is in society where women wear hijab, this still happens. And when you look at the rape statistics, sometimes Muslims will say, well, there's more rapes in non-Muslim countries, but are they even reported in Muslim countries? Do people, like, you know what I mean?
You know what? You have talked about social experiment, and I would talk about the reality. What's happening in Afghanistan? They have covered women, they have imposed a dress code on women, they have covered women from head to toe, but still sustained efforts to erase women from social and political sphere. Why? Why women have been banned from going back to their workplace? Why girls are banned from schools? Because being a woman is enough for them, for doing anything, commit any crime against them. Being a woman is enough. So saying that a woman was wearing hijab, so they are wearing burqas in Afghanistan at the moment. It's imposed on them, but still, Taliban leaders are saying themselves that we cannot control our, people, our, members. So you have to stay confined within the four walls of your home until we, maintain some decorum. Exactly. Then they have this kind of pro-Taliban agenda, I would say, showing some women, a bunch of women wearing these, kind of clothing, and then delivering some speeches, pro-Taliban speeches, and protesting in favor of Taliban. I mean, we know that these kind of people are everywhere in every human society. There are women who put other women down, tear other women down, tell other women vulgar. I know that there are women who, support Sharia law, which is inherently discriminatory towards women, but they support Sharia law and they call other women who don't comply immodest. In other words, you are vulgar, you don't comply, you're not obedient enough, you're not good enough, you're not pious. When uh, divide women into modest and immodest, then in the category of being immodest comes everything.
Hmm.
So saying
It's
that this dress code can protect women, it's not true.
mhm.
It's No way through in the Muslim majority country. What happens? I would like to talk about what happens at Tahrir Square in Egypt.
Hmm.
There was a revolution. And after the revolution, what happened there? 80 women were assaulted in one night. And then it continued for some time. And those many of those women were wearing, traditional clothing, local, the way local women dress up. Why they were attacked? Why they were raped? What was their crime?
Hmm.
There
Yeah.
is no excuse. There is no excuse. There is no way this argument stands to the reason that women who wear hijab, burqa, niqab, they are protected. And this kind of social experiments, obviously, they are delusional, or they try to peddle a certain narrative, which has nothing to do with the ground reality. And
Yeah.
as you talked about, that maybe the cases are not reported. Obviously, there is a stigma. It's a taboo. If you are raped and everybody knows about it, your life is finished in these societies. Nobody would respect you, look at you like you are a respectable lady. Nobody would marry you. Marriage is the most important thing in those society for a woman to do, in her life. So nothing's going to happen. Nothing good is going to happen to you. So people, if it happens, they would try to, hide it. They would try to conceal the information, whatever happened. And sometimes they would try to, negotiate and try to marry their girls off to that same criminal who committed a crime against her. So this is a fallacious argument, which has nothing to do with reality. And it is very unfortunate that this Islamic feminism, they are,
Islamic
they
feminism.
are exactly Islamic feminism, and those Islamic feminists, I would say, they try to make everything look nice and good about whatever their religion offers them or grants them. They try to, present it as something, the only thing good ever happened to women. But it is not true. They are privileged enough to be born and raised in free democratic Western societies. And still, it's beyond comprehension that they feel themselves like obliged. They think that they are obliged to give credit for their liberties and freedoms to the religion, while many women across the Muslim world, they have their rights, their freedoms snuffed out, by the religious and cultural manifestations sprouting from religious theological discourse. And this claim that Islam can be a feminist religion or is a feminist religion, I can go hand in hand with feminism. It does not stand to the reason, because Islam, the Islam, what the concept behind Islamic dress code is entirely different. What feminism represents. Feminism talks about equality for women, dignity of women for women, and respect for women in social, political, sphere. But the dress code, the Islamic rules and regulation imposed on women, they are like on the opposite pole to the feminism. They are not aligned in any way. So saying that it can be possible, or they can reconcile their religion with the principle of feminism inspired by Western feminism, it's not possible. They are far behind, and they can't catch up any time sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that there's a long way to go with the victim
And one
blaming.
more thing I want
Yep.
to add, that this kind of discussion, when they say that, okay, the religion is all feminist and we have all our right protected and we have given the most beautiful, opportunities and most perfect lifestyle by our religion, it shuts down the discussion about women's plight within these closed communities in the West and across the Muslim world. Like you must have seen some arguments on social media that people are saying that maybe Taliban are trying to be polite, they're trying to understand and honor women's rights. First of all, Taliban have never said that they would treat women equally, they would honor women's rights. They never said that. Yes, they said that they would honor women's rights, but within the framework of Islam. And we all know that what Islam offers to women, how it sees women, always in relation to men. Always women's rights are defined in relation to those of men. It's never that they see women as an individual. Like somebody wrote on Twitter that the heaven is under the feet of a mother. It's for a son. It's for her son, a man. Ironically, she cannot enter herself, that paradise without pleasing her husband. It's her husband who would, give her permission to enter that paradise. So these kind of sugarcoating is harmful. It perpetuates a structure, a social structure, where women, they live with far fewer rights than men. So we cannot say this is a myth, this is a fallacy that Islamic rules and regulation can ever be reconciled with feminism that talks about women's dignity and women's respect in all manners. And the most disturbing things in this regard is that many people here in the West who claim to be liberal and progressive, that also includes some feminists, they have bought into this narrative that Islamic feminism can, they both can coexist. There is no problem. They have made hijab, burqa, and niqab a symbol of empowerment for women. I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to see them glorifying a tool of oppression. The rights and freedoms we enjoy here in the West, it's not granted or given by any religion. It's the Western democratic societies that give us that right, that empowerment. Giving credit to the religion for your liberties, it's highly disingenuous. And I would say this is the betrayal on the part of these liberals and progressives, and deception on the part of these privileged Muslim women who come forward to pretend that Muslim women or women in the Muslim majority countries are revered, when their rights are infringed upon, in the name of protecting religious sensibilities, in the name of protecting cultural sensitivities. So that is not true. And shutting down discussion, we take this stance that shuts down the discussion. And who will bear the brunt? It's the vulnerable women who are not safe even with their own family, while being with their own families. What happened in France? A 17-year-old girl, she had a Christian boyfriend. Apparently, she was not following that so-called modest, code of life that was imposed by the family, by the Muslim family, and she refused to comply. So they tortured her. Her ribs were broken. Her head was shaved. I mean, we are leaving these women, these vulnerable women, at the mercy of extremists, whether they are their own family members. It doesn't matter. They are extremists who believe in, torturing women, in discriminating against women if they refuse to comply. They refuse to conform to the archaic, dress code or a code of life that is, dictated by religious teachings.
Hmm. I'm just going to read a comment from a Muslim follower saying, "My relatives are highly educated and modest at the same time and live extremely happy." So I just want to acknowledge his point that it is true that not everybody is miserable. We're not saying every single woman in Pakistan hates her life. We're not saying that. Obviously, I would think under Taliban, it would be a lot more women would be miserable now than in Pakistan. But like what we're trying to say here is that I think what Khadija would agree with me. I'll let her respond after I'm done, which is that this system does not allow you the freedom to choose. So if you're one of those that's happy under that system, maybe you were raised to be very conservative and maybe it matches your personality and maybe you don't mind covering up or whatever. Maybe you don't know better. Maybe that's the only reality available to you. It's not like you have a choice. It's not like you're living in Canada like I am, where your family maybe is highly religious. You have to wear hijab. And when you go to school, you see other girls that they don't wear hijab. They wear whatever they want. They go out, they're swimming, and you can't swim without wearing a burqa, maybe because your family members are strict about that. Or maybe you feel that if you don't dress like this, you will be punished by Allah, or you will be sinful, or you will be going against your family values. So you might, but at least you can see that there's an option there. But whereas in the Muslim country, maybe that reality, that alternative vision of how a woman can be might not even you might not even consider that an option. So obviously, we're not saying every single person in every Muslim country is miserable and sad and horrible and they all want to die. No, no, no. Of course, there's some women are happy there. Obviously, there's some and there's a mix too. Some women are happy, but they also maybe would be happier if they had at least the freedom to choose and to make their own decision. And one more thing before you respond, Khadija, I wanted to bring this up and you brought it up, which is this privileged Muslim woman living in the West that is, oh, my hijab, my choice. Okay, yeah, sure, your hijab. Yes, for you, for you, your hijab, your choice. You might be a Muslim convert, especially in that case, you have even more choice because your family, they don't even care if you wear hijab. You're choosing to wear hijab. But if you're in a Muslim family and you're growing up and your parents, your father, and or even your husband might be insisting that you don't have a choice, right? And the society on top of it is also enforcing that lack of freedom on you. So it's obviously it's disingenuous, like you said, to act like hijab is such a great thing. People that promote hijab should also promote, like, hijab day should also promote no hijab day. It should be both. Otherwise, you're not really helping anything. You're just encouraging, you're taking away from people in Iran and people in Pakistan and Saudi that they don't want to live like that. And one more thing, last thing, then I'll let you talk. I see these creative Muslim women that are trying to create a livelihood on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And some of them, they have to wear so they can't show themselves taking off hijab, so they wear two hijabs. They wear a hijab and, like, this is how you put on a hijab, and they take off the second hijab. So the creativity is highly limited. I'm talking about, like, in non-Muslim countries, by the fact that they have to wear hijab. They cannot do a lot of the things that the counterparts in fashion or the counterparts in you are doing makeup videos, and they don't have the same liberty that these non-Muslim women have to dress and to express themselves how they want to. They're limited by the hijab. And some of the women, I've actually have a video on one of my older videos on the channel that talks about one of these Muslim women. I had a clip from her where she said that wearing hijab actually, it made her lose hair because of the way you had to wear it. It actually affected her hair. Some people mention the vitamin D thing, which I think is a little bit far-fetched, but like it maybe can, it's definitely not comfortable. It's definitely not enjoyable wearing hijab. It's definitely a sacrifice, although there are probably some benefits to it as well. But on a whole, I'd say it's a net negative, which is why I speak against it.
First of all, I would like to respond to the statement somebody has put it here. The thing is, there is nobody who is saying that everybody is having the same experience, as we are talking about. But saying that majority is happy and want to follow this kind of dress code, this kind of strict lifestyle, it's not true. I have been lived all my life in a society that is very conservative when it comes to treat women. As I said, that when you live in these societies, you don't know what is a normal life for women. What you can do yourself. You cannot step out of your house if you want to. That is normality for a person. The definition of normality. That if you want to swim, you should be able to go to a swimming pool and swim. You can do that. If you want to go to a shop and want to have a coffee, sit there for some time with your friends, you can do it. But yes, some people can do these things, even in Pakistan. But they are highly privileged people. What about the majority? Majority don't have resources. They are middle class. They are poor people. They are women. They don't know how to write, how to read. They are not well educated enough to, even to know what are their basic human rights. So saying this, that my family is, I have heard this argument from Muslim women in the West. My family is very good. My brother, he's very nice to me. My father is very nice to me. What about those women who don't have, you know, this kind of pleasant family member around her? What about her? As I told you, a 17-year-old girl, what was her crime? Why she was so badly beaten by her own family? Her ribs were broken. Her head was shaved. Why? And one thing that I want to say, that these women who are subjected to torture, we know that from the news, that these women, they make headlines, only when they are like trapped in a situation, they are being subjected to the torture. Sometimes they are lucky enough to make the headline as a living person, and sometimes the news of their death in an honor killing, becomes the headlines of the newspaper.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
when you kill one person, one woman, you send a message to the rest of the society, to the community, that don't dare to, you know, refuse to comply. You have to conform to whatever the rules and regulations have been uh, set by the community leaders, by the community members, or the family members. So saying that my everything is all well with me, so it's not as bad as it shows. There are women, I will tell you about myself. In my teenage years, I was very much happy with whatever I had. I never thought of, or what it is to be a normal, liberated, empowered woman. I was like, I have to be obedient. I have to be obedient to my father, to my brother, to my husband. That is my life. That's it. And I will enter the paradise when the all male member of my family would say, thumbs up, you're all right, you can go. We are happy with you, whatever you did for us. I was all happy. It is like internalized misogyny, that whatever prejudice was directed at me, whatever discrimination was, done against me, I accepted it as my fate. I accepted it as some religious obligation, some religious commandment, that this is what I was created for. So there are many women who still think like this. I was fortunate enough to come out of this, state of mind, but many are still trapped. And when you are glorifying hijab, what is the problem with glorifying hijab? What is the problem saying that my hijab, my choice? The thing is, what you are trying to glorify is not a benign piece of cloth. There is an ideology behind this cloth. Why it is imposed on majority of women living in Muslim majority countries. There is a purpose to make it a compulsion for Muslim women. And when you try to glorify that dress, you are condoning that oppression, intentionally or unwittingly, but you are condoning that oppression. So if you think that you are lucky enough to have to choose to wear hijab, that's fine. But don't glorify it. But don't, glamorize it. Don't say that it's a symbol of empowerment. Can you imagine the state of mind of a woman who is being imprisoned for taking off the hijab when she would see a woman is proudly, wearing her hijab and, there is a photo show taking place and she's saying, "Oh, I'm so happy with my hijab." Can you imagine her state of mind? It's so cruel, it's so inhuman. I mean, you are fine because you are living in a free Western country. You are fine, you want to wear hijab. Fine. But when you say that, let's normalize it. If now one more thing I want to say that people they want to show solidarity with Muslim women by donning hijab. I mean, I am not anti-religion. I I don't say that people should not follow a religion. I believe that it's everyone's right to follow a faith system if they want to, and they should be free to do so. So if I want to show solidarity, as I told you that I had been writing for minority religious group in my own country, I didn't have to wear a cross. I don't have to wear a certain attire to show solidarity with a Christian priest or with Jews. I just have to say that I stand in solidarity with you unconditionally. Why are you trying to normalize an attire that has contentious, controversial meaning? And people are having debates whether it is good for women or not. Why you are choosing to wear that kind of dress? I mean, this is reckless, I would say. When you want to show solidarity with someone, you don't have to. Now, I wore an Afghan dress, an Afghan cultural dress to show solidarity with Afghan women. That is a beautiful cultural dress. That means no oppression for Afghan women. They would love to wear it. Today, if they get the opportunity, they would throw away these black burqas, hijabs, niqabs, and they would love to wear that dress. And if I wear that dress, I literally represent their passion for their tradition, for their, clothing, traditional clothing. But if I wear a burqa, imagine if I wear a burqa and niqab, now when they are forced to wear it and go on social media and post my photos, and like mainstream media outlets, they would love to invite me for an interview, presenting me as an empowered Muslim woman who is wearing covered from head to toe and wearing niqab and showing her like eyes only. They would love to represent me, as a perfect Muslim woman. And if I do this, what I am representing, how I'm showing solidarity with them, I am making fun of their plight. I'm mocking their what situation they are going through. So this is the difference. This is the thing we need to talk about. Saying that, oh, some women are free to wear and we should celebrate hijab. No, I would never celebrate hijab. I would never celebrate hijab. I'm not gonna run after individuals and taking off their hijab. No, I would rather like to have a discussion with them, because this is what I believe in: freedom of speech, have open discussion on such crucial issues. I would like to pursue these women that why are you promoting or celebrating certain attire that is a tool to oppress women, saying that okay, it is oppression in Iran, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, it is not an oppression here in the West. Still, this argument does not stand. The tool that is created to control women, control women's sexuality, you cannot separate that ideology from that attire, whether that attire is worn here in the Western societies.
Yeah, I think the reason you're so impassioned about this is because you've lived through this. I would just say that if someone wants to promote hijab, as oppressive and evil as it is, not evil, well, as as harmful as it is, they should also be asked the same question: do you support people's rights to not wear hijab? And I'd say most of them would say no. Maybe they would say yes. I highly doubt it. But you made a good point that you don't have to be gay to defend homosexuality or LGBT rights.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not. And sometimes people like, early on it happened a lot more. Now it doesn't happen a lot. People used to say, oh, you must be gay, you're always supporting LGBT rights. I was like, that doesn't even follow. There's no connection between those two
Yes,
things. Like
exactly.
I support animals' rights. Does that mean I'm an animal? Like what? You
Exactly.
know what I mean? I
This
want to talk about. Sorry, go ahead. You want to respond to that?
No, I was just saying that this you are absolutely right in saying so that you don't have to wear a certain attire or to behave in a certain way to support some people or support a minority group. Your sincerity, your words, and your action can manifest your sincerity and convey your message very well.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, talking about the role of women in the societies. It's Would you agree with me that it's to be baby machines, to basically be married when you're young, so there's very little choice. Oftentimes you're married to a cousin. You don't get to, as a woman, I've said this before. I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but in in incels are better off in Muslim countries. And the reason I say that is because, in let's say, in a country where you have a free sexual marketplace, meaning that this actually benefits women because women get to choose. Women in Canada, women are the ones that choose the partners. I mean, the men usually, any dating website, the women are the ones that pick the men. The men, they have usually lots of options and they get to choose. So they get to benefit. Whereas in Muslim countries, I don't want to overgeneralize, but like especially in conservative cultures where there's arranged marriage, the woman doesn't get to choose her partner. The family chooses a partner based on arrangements, based on dowry, based on you're gonna get this much, she's your relative maybe, or he's your relative. And so the woman doesn't necessarily get the best option for her partner. Whereas over here, I would think she'd be better off because she could choose who she wants to be with and she would have more options. What do you think about that?
I believe in individual freedom, and when it comes to women to choose a partner for themselves, I think they should be free. But obviously, in these conservative societies, it's not the case. Everything is arranged for you, and even for the men, you know that it's for men. It's also like this that they arrange. The arranged marriage is very much, prevalent in these societies for both men and women. But obviously, for women, it's more, I would say, harmful because when it comes to arrange things for women, women's willingness, or women's choice, it's not included. It's not involved. It's like they are told that you are going to get married on this day, and you are going to get married with this person, whether you like him or not. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
So yeah,
Mhm.
I was gonna respond to this. I don't think this comment is true. Even in Muslim countries, marriage doesn't happen if a woman doesn't say yes. Would you agree with this? You lived in a Muslim country.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Even in Islamic countries, marriage doesn't happen if the woman doesn't say yes, he's saying. Do you agree with this?
If the woman doesn't say yes, no, it's not the case. It's not the case. Again, I say that you bring up this game of deceptive game of semantics, and you can say that, oh, religion says this, religion, but the ground realities, the application of those beliefs is entirely different from what is written in the books. And some in so many places, the guardianship system, what it is, you don't have to require you don't require the consent from the girl. Your father is enough to say yes. And how can you say that it happens in Muslim countries like this? I mean, that is extraordinary that people just, the reality is that there are certain factors, okay, and they enforce, like you said, lack of freedom, a lack of opportunity, and women have no choice but to comply. Even if they are asked that, would you like to marry to this person, they cannot say no, because if they say so, they know the repercussions, they know the consequences. So I would say it's very good to hear that it doesn't happen in Muslim country, but it does happen. Sorry to for
I
busting your
know for a
bubble.
fact. I know for a fact
Yes,
that
in
women don't
Muslim,
get.
you must know it from the Muslim communities here in the West.
Yeah,
It happens. It's so
yeah,
prevalent
yeah.
that you are just told that you are going to get married, and you are married, and
To a cousin.
yeah, and in Britain, in the UK, it's been the case that the girls, like 9-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, they would be taken out of school to the countries of their parents, where their parents have come from, and married off to the cousins and to the man arranged by their parents. And they would come back with the child, and soon after, their spouse will follow them. Yeah. So I think it happens here in the Western countries. So how
Mhm.
can you say that it doesn't happen in Muslim societies that are very much closed and conservative in their approach as to how to treat women, and how to, get them all the rights or all the needs that they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had you for 90 minutes now. Again, I want to remind everyone that you can follow Khadija Khan on Twitter at Khadija Khan, Khadija Khan underscore underscore. At Twitter, I'll post the link as well, so you can follow her. Khadija, I've had you for a while now. Do you still have a bit of time to finish up the points on Taliban? We didn't talk about it that much. We didn't talk about Islamophobia, but that's okay because I think
Yes.
your perspective on women's issues is much more important than on Islamophobia, because I have talked about Islamophobia before, and definitely I think I can have you on again so we can talk about some of these other topics, because as predicted, this conversation went very quickly. I knew that was going to happen, and you have a lot to say. You have a lot of very useful insights that I'm very happy they're going to be out there now. Do you want to talk
Thank
about what
you.
has happened? Do you have a bit of time still? Or do
Yeah,
you want
yeah,
to finish
sure,
up?
sure.
Okay, so let's
Definitely.
talk about Taliban. Women's rights violations under the Taliban. The Taliban have replaced women's ministry with morality police. Do you want to tell us about that?
Morality police, as you can, guess by the name, what it is to control to impose the moral values on to the society, and to root out the vulgarity. And what is vulgarity for them? Vulgarity is the existence of women outside the house, in the public domain, in the political sphere. That is the vulgarity. So for them, it was essential to remove that ministry and women's ministry, and replace it with the morality police. Why we are shying away from admitting that Taliban never made any promise to treat women fairly and equally. What they said is, we will honor women's right within the framework of Islam. And this is what they did when they were in power in 1990s, and now they are doing the same thing. They have not changed. Yes, now we see that gap, 20-year gap. In that gap, under foreign occupation, the women, Afghan women, were able to claim a significant place in the Afghan society, and the cause of gaining recognition as an individual member of the society that should be treated equally uh, has been replete with unprecedented challenges, but it was all worth it was worth fighting for. So we see that these women has been fighting, but the struggle has yet to deliver its goal. But now, with Taliban taking over in Afghanistan, obviously there are fears that this whole struggle will be undone. That obviously these women are resisting, and they are taking a firm stand and defending their own right and position into the society, and they are refusing to give up their rights in the face of fear, and that is really courageous, I would say. And Taliban, what they are doing, they are imposing their understanding of their religion. And don't say that that is their interpretation. Wife beating is sanctioned by the religion. And this one thing tells you women's place in that society where this has been enforced as a moral value. That tells you that a woman, if she refuses to comply, you have the authority, the religion confer on men the right to uh, beat their wives, to discipline them if they refuse to comply. So, saying that Taliban are imposing their understanding of religion, it's not entirely true. They are implementing implementing rules and regulation and laws sprouting from theological discourse, and we have. Justification for this kind of treatment with women. I mean, when you say that women is a field and man can plow as it pleases them, how you are treating women, how you are addressing women, you are addressing women as an object, as
Mhm.
where that can be used to fulfill sexual desire as it pleases men. So I entirely uh, disagree with this statement that Taliban are imposing or enforcing their understanding of religion. We need to talk about this, that it is religion that sanctioned the violations of women's rights. This morality, these moral values which are based on a religion, they perpetuate a system where they normalize violation of women's rights, and they draw its authority on religious sources. So I think these women are courageous, they are resisting, but the word has to play its role. We cannot stay silent. We cannot just turn a blind eye to the plight of these women. We need to talk about these women. I have seen that these news and these hype that was created right after the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan. Now we see that there is very less discussion about how women are going to be treated under Taliban's regime, and that is a very, I would say, very concerning moment, because these women who have fought for their rights under foreign occupation and now still resisting and trying to defend their rights, they are left alone to in this struggle and in fight, and that is not fair, because what is happening in Afghanistan, it has far-reaching impact. You cannot say that it will stay within the boundaries of Afghanistan. It will, go beyond it. The treatment women are receiving there, it will be normalized for countless women around the world. We have seen the endorsement of what Taliban, how Taliban are going to treat and are treating women here in the UK, where the Sharia Council, UK Sharia Council scholar Paula Hassan, she overtly she supported Taliban, and she overtly supported the promises and whatever their policies are in regards to women's rights. She overtly did this. So we are going to have the impact here as well in the West, in the Muslim communities, in the closed section of Muslim communities where women are in vulnerable position, where they can be subjugated, where they can be subject to mistreatment or inhuman treatment. And the fear of being subjugated by Taliban is petrifying. And Taliban means Islamists who want to impose a radical interpretation or literal interpretation of their religion on others. And we should not think that this will stay there. It is going to, cross border, and it's going to go beyond Afghanistan. If we will not confront this harsh and bitter reality now, I think it will be too late for us to do so later on.
Mm-hmm. So, some really good comments I wanted to highlight. That was well said from your end. And one small thing I do disagree with, which I will talk about. So, first of all, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I hate to be like having to do this, but honestly, it's important and it helps the channel. So, if you guys do like the show, please do like the video and subscribe as well. This helps me to continue doing this. Now, there's a lot of really good comments here, and I'll try to go to them as quickly as possible. Okay, wait, I'll get to that one after. Absolutely agree with Khadija. This is Zara K saying, despite the misogynistic verses in the Quran, there's subtle, deeply rooted subjugation of women. Yes, absolutely. And that's what you were referring to. One more thing. Thank you, Khadija and Friendly Ex-Muslim from Asexual Atheist. And the question, I will get back to the questions after. What I wanted to say is, what you were saying about this is the Taliban's literal interpretation of Islam. I do want to emphasize that I agree with that this is one interpretation of Islam, and I very strongly believe that Taliban's version of Islam is one version of Islam. We cannot say it has nothing to do with Islam. We cannot say it's not Islamic. We cannot say they're not Muslim. All of those are like idiotic things to say that some Muslims will say in order to do a no true Scotsman, because they don't want anything bad associated with the religion. But at the same time, we can also say that Taliban's version of Islam is not the only version of Islam, and there are other versions and other interpretations. But I don't want to debate that, because I think you made the same point as well. You said that this is their interpretation of Islam, and I do want to emphasize that most Muslims, or maybe not, maybe some Muslims would disagree with them, some Muslims would support them. It's a mixed bag. But yeah, Taliban is Islamist. They want to establish Sharia law. Obviously they already are doing that now. It's not they want to. I'm so used to saying want to, but now we have someone that actually is doing it, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate. Do you want to say anything about any of that if I continue?
I would just say that you're absolutely right in saying that this is their version, their interpretation. But then again, I want to go beyond this game of semantics, that interpretation stuff, that let's be clear about what is written clearly in the Quran. And then you can go into the debate, ethical debate, or whatever the interpretation is. Wife beating is there. They are called, women is called, like referred to as field, less than half share in property, and there are so many other things that are clearly written in the Quran. So I don't want to go into this interpretation thing that it is their interpretation. This is what is written. This is what is written. If they are stoning women to that, it is the Islamic law. It is not their interpretation. There is no moderate interpretation of wife beating. There is no moderate interpretation of stoning women to that. It is literal, and this is what they are doing. So let's be honest about it. Like Mehdi Hassan, you must know him. He said, "Don't call Taliban,
Islamic.
Islamic." I
Yeah.
mean, come on, who you are trying to, fool? This
Yeah.
is so ridiculous. And when I asked him to condemn the remarks of
Mhm.
Hola Hassan, who supported Taliban, the Sharia Council scholar, he didn't respond.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit
She said
unreachable.
that I
Yeah.
have not met a single Muslim who is not celebrating Taliban. Can you imagine the comment
Yeah.
and the impact of that comment?
Yeah.
So this is really, it's highly disingenuous to say these kind of things, that this is not Islamic. They
Yeah.
are interpretation things, but there are some literal things that they are imposing, and they are subjecting women to inhuman treatment in the name of protecting religious belief.
Yeah. So I know you're not someone that debates theology. I'm just saying from a
Yeah.
theological perspective, it's definitely, we have to acknowledge that every interpretation of Islam is based on human effort. So whether or not the book literally says something does not always translate into this is the ruling. There's examples in the Quran of things that nobody would actually do today, no Muslim would do, no Muslim scholar would acknowledge. For example, find them wherever, fight and kill them wherever you find them, slay them, like the non-Muslims. No Islamic scholar today says you should go around killing
But
non-Muslims like
but
that.
some people do it.
So
You know
that's the
that.
point. The point is that there's
That's
going
the
to
point.
be
That there is
yeah,
still a possibility
yeah.
to take this thing literally.
So
This is
so
the
so I
possibility that
yeah.
we are just seeing at the moment in Afghanistan. This is what I meant actually.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with that, and I don't rule out that opinion, which is what Muslims like to do. Just to be a little bit more careful though, we do have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that there are other ways of interpreting Islam which are not Islamist. For example, I
Yes.
mean, I'm going to use examples from my life that I know. Hamza
Mm.
Yusuf, who is an American scholar, again, I'm using examples from my life. He would say that, and not just him, also other like I can't think of examples now, but there's many people that would say the stoning and the chopping off hands and all of these things are not important in Islam as important as self purification and prayer and this and that. As long as those people might say that Taliban is not Islamic, and I would disagree with them because I'm an atheist, and I would say all of these are valid interpretations or possible valid interpretations of Islam. The Sufi would say the let's say
Yeah.
the apolitical Sufi would say no, Taliban's un-Islamic. I would say that's silly. That's silly, like just like you're saying. But I would not say that the Sufi is dishonest either because he's also
No.
cherry picking just like the other people are cherry picking.
Exactly. That is
So
cherry picking.
it is cherry picking,
Precisely.
but also
Yeah.
Taliban's cherry picking too, because
Exactly.
both of
But the
them are.
difference
Yeah,
between both of the difference between Taliban and these people, I am very much in support of progressive and moderate interpretations. I support these people. The reformers, I've been supporting them, and I do support them. And because majority of people, they don't subscribe to these radical beliefs as the Taliban and some other Islamists do. But the problem is that there are people who would deny that there is something wrong with these, kind of things which are literally in this prescribed in the religious scripture. And there are people who would say, yes, there are bad things. We have to leave them behind. I would prefer this narrative that acknowledge that yes, that is a bad bit. We need to leave it behind. We have to move on. If you say that don't look at the bad bit and just look at the good stuff, what you are doing, you are leaving the possibility for the people like Taliban and Islamists to look at that bad bit that is still existing. So that's why I say that yes, there is a problem of interpretation. I know there are certain, as you said, that nobody would talk about the verse that you said, find them and just kill
yeah,
them. Many people are peaceful. Otherwise, obviously, there are billions of people. They cannot be just so radically extreme. Otherwise, this world would be like a crazy and insane place. So obviously, we have more majority of people as peaceful, law-abiding people. But the thing is, if we try to condemn the bad bits in the religion, in the scripture, then we would eliminate this possibility for people like Taliban and Islamists who claim that their version of Islam is the right version. We would be able to say that yes, we had this, and now we don't have it. So whatever you have, it's nothing to do with us.
yeah. So in the last 10 minutes, and then we're gonna end off.
Mhm.
I want to talk about toxic. So a couple of other things. I don't know if we covered some of these. Toxic modesty culture, and it harms women of Muslim heritage. That was. What do you think about that?
This modesty culture is
Yeah,
obviously it is based on the more religious moral values which dictate women and each and every moment of women's life. how they should conduct themselves socially, politically, whether they are allowed to go to schools, whether they are allowed to go to, and again they say that there is this problem of interpretation. Everybody interprets religious scripture differently, and then they enforce the laws according to their interpretation, and it also implies in regards to women's right. But in Saudi Arabia, we see very strict, interpretation of religion in regards to women's right, and they restrict women, they force women to cover themselves, like it's happening right now in Afghanistan, in other Muslim majority countries. It's becoming a trend, I would say. So the modesty culture means that a woman should be a modest, pious, righteous one, and she has to cover herself. She has to talk slowly. She would not talk loud. She would, look at, men who are not from her family, na-mahram. She would not be in a room alone with a na-mahram, and these kind of things, these little details that constitute what it is to be a modest woman. So this is toxic because it controls women, it controls women's sexuality, it does not allow women to be herself, to be independent, and to be opinionated. It denies women respect, dignity, and basic human rights to make a choice for themselves. So this is what this culture perpetuates. It perpetuates women rights abuses, and when women's are, and then people help the culprits to get away with those abuses, and they don't have to answer to anyone when they are beating their wife. It's an ordained right for them, and they can just do it to discipline, because the excuse is enough to justify their mistreatment, that she was not obedient enough. I said something, she didn't follow, and I just beat her. So I say that modest culture, and that hijab and burqa and niqab, these are the visible symbols of this modesty culture. Actually, these are the tools that help to perpetuate that structure, that social structure where women are discriminated and marginalized in the name of protecting moral values. Like in Pakistan, we see that Women's March, women are simply taking to the street to demand their basic human rights, but they are considered as vulgar because they are exceeding the limits of those moral values which have been set by men in powerful position, and obviously women are obliged to stay within those boundaries, and they are exceeding the limits by protesting for their basic human rights. So I think it's beyond comprehension that a religion or a religious reading or a tradition, if they denies women respect, dignity, and basic human right, how can it deserve respect or any kind of concession in 21st century, when we are talking about women, equal rights for women in all manners, in social, political, and legal manners, regardless of her gender, sexuality, of her views. She should be treated as an equal member of the society. So I have no idea how can we just make these excuses. Yes, these excuses are used by some apologists to downplay women's plight and make overlook what's being done in the name of religion. And these are women's right abuses, and I think we need to look at them as such.
That was beautifully said, really well said. So I think we'll end off there. You've said a lot, and we didn't cover Islamophobia. We can do that another time. I'm just going to read some of the super chats. Choco Billy says, I'm marrying my Christian fiance, dating for 10 years. At the end of the year, my parents are giving me hell, but I'm determined to live my life. Yeah, you go, girl. Like, this is what this is what you
Good
need to
luck.
do. Yeah, good luck. And, hopefully that this will, work out. At the end of the day, it's your life to live, not your parents,
Yes.
right? Your parents should have, I mean, they can have some influence on you, but at the end of the day, you get to make the final decision, right? You get to
Exactly.
decide. And especially if you've been with this person for 10
I
years,
think
I mean,
parents should always be there for their children to help them if they need, and to help them navigate, their, in the right direction, and to help them in making decision, and if they need. And it is for you to decide what you want to do. And I think good parents, they always uh, stand by with their kids. I don't understand about those parents who would say, no, I don't want to, and try to, impose their will on their kids.
yeah. Sometimes parents, I'm lucky as well. My parents are not like that, but sometimes they think more about what people are going to think of them rather than what
Yes.
the kids' happiness should be. So yeah, definitely that. So okay, so that's a wrap then. I'm gonna share your Twitter account again. That it's in the comments. Sorry, it's in the description. If people want to follow Khadija, is there anything else you want to add or anything else you want to share before we get going?
Speaking of parents, I would say I would like to say one thing.
Yes.
The role of parents is very important. When I was like very young, and my father, he bought me some hijab, very colorful hijab, to make me get used to this, practice. And I started wearing it very like conveniently. I had no problem in wearing it because I would match my hijab with my clothes, and it was really fun thing for me. But for some time, after some time, I felt like I don't want to wear it. This is how the children behave.
Hmm.
I want to wear it today, but I don't want to wear it tomorrow. So when I tried to take it off, then I was told by my father that no, you cannot take it off. You have to wear it. And for me, it was like a shock. uh, I wasn't expecting this, but I was very fortunate enough that my mother was there. She stood for me. She confronted my father and said, I didn't give birth to a slave. She would never wear this again. And you never dare to put this on my girl's head. And she pulled that hijab off my head. And that moment defines for me what it is to be a liberated woman, what it is to be a free person. So I would say that it is a kind of request, literally. I can understand why would you not look at your children and love them unconditionally, and just think about what other people say about you and your children. I can never understand this thing. So I would urge people to look at your kids and just feel like they need you and your love more than anything in this world. And it's your love, your support that defines everything that they are going to, grapple with in their future lives. So be with them, and make it possible that you are always in their favor, not listening to the people what they are talking about.
So, so just to kind of reiterate, so your mom, when your dad first gave it to you, she was okay with it because you were okay with it. But then when you were
No,
not okay with it,
she was like, okay, she's wearing fine.
yeah,
She didn't like it,
yeah,
but it was like me. I want to wear, mom.
yeah,
I like it. Papa bought me. I want
yeah,
to wear it.
yeah,
So it was like, okay, wear it.
yeah.
Maybe she knew me. She knew that I'm gonna just say that, okay, I don't want to, because this is how children. Some people say that, okay, a little 4-year, 5-year-old girls, they imitate their mothers when
Yeah,
mothers wear hijab. I can completely understand this, but I don't buy into this argument that they want to continue doing it for the
yeah,
rest of their lives, because
yeah.
children, they love one thing for one day, and they just they get bored the second day.
Yeah. No, that's good. I appreciate that she didn't stop you. She let you figure it out for yourself. And then
Oh, she
when you
was
needed,
lovely.
yeah, and when you needed support, she was there to support you and say, listen, she doesn't want to
Yeah,
wear it now.
yeah,
Get
and
lost.
she faced the wrath of my father for that. It
Oh,
wasn't easy. It was never easy for her.
yeah. Well, that's great. You have a wonderful mom.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for coming. Do you want to share any? So where can people find you?
My Twitter.
Okay, so yeah, everyone do check out Khadija's Twitter. And Khadija, it was wonderful having you on. We'll definitely
It
have
was
another
a pleasure
conversation.
talking to you. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was really a thought-provoking conversation we had.
it was great. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everyone. So that's a wrap. Thank you guys for coming to another episode of Friendly Ex-Muslim. We'll have the next one probably next week. Looking forward to that as well. And do subscribe if you're new here. Check out the podcast on iTunes. Leave a 5-star review if you can to get it up in the ranks so it gets more visibility. And thank you to everyone that gave a super chat today. I'm sorry I didn't get to bring all of the super chats on the screen, but I do appreciate all of your support, financial support, the donations, and also to the moderators. Thank you, John Stopman, for managing the chat. And some of the comments were a little bit getting a little bit heated there, which is it's a little bit hard to. I tried not to look at the chat because sometimes it becomes distracting. I want to focus on what's being said. But that's hard sometimes. So thank you, moderators. Thank you, John, for keeping this, going on so I can focus on the conversation at hand. And it was nice to see everyone. And we have a great community here. And we'll see you again later. Bye, everyone.